The origin of an idea versus its adaptations. Why bother looking into this at all? Well, we currently live in a society where brands outlive human life. A great example is what you're wearing right now, or what you like to watch, or the video games you like to play, or the comics you read. Everything has started somewhere, and I am here to figure out if these seamlessly endless pipelines evolve or devolve from their origin. Today's topic will delve into a rather young intellectual property, starring a wondrous color-schemed hero and a creative team that paves the way for a new superhero universe. Has the hit series, Invincible, expanded itself? Or has the light of this budding concept started to wither already? Let's first get into how this idea was conceived before we start talking about its evolution. That's right, we're talking about comics. More specifically, the comic series that started it all. Invincible, which is an American comic book series written by Robert Kirkman, illustrated by Cory Walker and Ryan Ottley, was published by Image Comics. Invincible follows the coming of age of superhero Mark Grayson, aka Invincible. He's a Viltrumite and firstborn son of Omni-Man, the most powerful person on the planet. Wanting to be a superhero just like his father, Mark jumps at the opportunity when he gains superpowers. He attempts to take on the role as a hero without understanding the responsibility of it, and he pays for that over and over and over again. He is tested by empires, powerful tyrants, and even what he thinks are his allies. The more you read this comic, the more you see why this story is called Invincible. Mark himself isn't physically unbreakable. The comic goes out of its way to let you know that much.
He's already dead!
But his spirit and will is unstoppable. Even as he grows older and continues to keep fighting even the most impossible battles, he never gives up. And that in itself is extremely inspiring. When you pick up this comic, you grow to respect how much heart and story is put into every single page. The series began publication on January 22nd, 2003, concluding on February 14th, 2018 with 144 issues. The story itself was nominated for many awards, including the largest award in the Sequential Art Society, the Eisner Awards. No, not Michael Eisner, the Disney CEO. I'm talking about Will Eisner. You know, the guy who popularized the term sequential art, made this series The Spirit. Come on, guys, read a book. The main thing that sets it apart is having been steered from beginning to end by a single creator. It is able to preserve a consistent narrative without too many continuity glitches across its entire 15-year span. While Marvel and DC characters have accumulated the craft of 60 to 80 years of history, having been written by literally hundreds of different writers, further complicating the endless reboots and multiverses, Invincible has always been written by one man, Robert Kirkman, and it shows. You could see things in the final few issues that were set up at the beginning of the series. Recurring characters really feel like reoccurring characters whose reappearances were intended all along. It's not perfect, of course. There are still a few silly tangents and a lot of plot holes, but for the most part, it feels like a very long saga that the writer was able to bring to a conclusion the way he wanted to.
Me, Invincible, I just want it to be this sprawling superhero epic that lasts for issues and issues.
The story is meant to push the boundaries of the superhero genre and adds to its overall message. To wrap this section up, the main purpose of this story is deconstructing what makes us human. And it does so in two ways, by contrasting us to the truly alien and by unearthing humanity where you'd least expect it. Morality makes us human. Like every living organism, we will die, but we are the only ones capable of understanding that grim reality. With all that being said, how can you adapt a story this long and this complex? Before I get too much into detail, let's get something out of the way. When you publish a comic series, they don't normally have audiobooks to go with them, probably because they haven't found a way to easily adapt a comic into something you can also listen to. Oh wait, they can. And they did! In 2008, Gain Enterprises engineered a motion comic using the Bomb XX process and broadcasted it on MTV2. As it stands, there is no change in its adaptation from the source material, so I will go over the summary of the story and its premise. The message is also the exact same. The only difference is that the motion comic is voice acted and edited like your local fandom comic drama. Sadly, this is sort of lost in media. I tried to dig for the original motion comic that they published all those years ago, but it looks like the only thing I could find was a link to the Wayback Machine on MTV's website and a lost trailer of the motion comic itself.
You know, you really ruined my afternoon. Well, now that I've got you all to myself.
This is not me editing, by the way. This is actually how they edited this trailer. Which is wild, considering these episodes were available to watch as recently as a few years ago, according to Reddit. The only reason I included this is because it was published and adapted at some point. And even though I won't be able to judge its content, it's cool to see that the IP of Invincible was so popular only a few years after it was published, that there was an attempt at adapting it that early on already. Think of this like a little fun history fact before we move on to the show. Speaking of which...
You look kind of, recently on fire.
Where's Mark, William?
There was this attack at the college, and all of a sudden...
Hot Mama! In 2021, the awesomeness known as Invincible hit Amazon Prime Video. The show follows 17-year-old Mark Grayson and his transformation into a superhero under the guidance of his father, Omni-Man, the most powerful being on the planet. During his transformation, Mark finds himself struggling between his personal life and superhero duties, where he will be forced to prove he can be the hero that his father is. The main cast starred Steven Yeun as Invincible, J.K. Simmons as Omni-Man, and Sandra Oh as Debbie. Following its release on March 25, 2021, the series received widespread acclaim from critics and audiences, with praise for its animation, action sequences, storyline, writing, voice acting, and faithfulness to the comics. But few, if any, comic book superhero stories survived their transition to the screen without incurring some changes, and Invincible is no exception. And it's hard to dispute those claims. From its nod to 1990s cartoon style of animation to the guidance from the original creators of the same series, Invincible sets itself apart from a lot of modern TV series. Let's actually dive into that animation style really quick. The color palette is deliberately chosen so that when we see blood on the screen, it really shows. And as the series goes on, the color becomes more and more vibrant and in your face. When the characters and plot make the jump from page to the screen, there are usually some key changes that are made. Some things just don't play out on screen in the same way they do in a book, and pacing is really hard to adapt to. However, Robert Kirkman appears to have made adjustments to Invincible that makes this show way more immersive. Some of the changes have made the cast more inclusive, while others have sped up the timeline of events that are soon to come. Side characters also have deeper motivations and expand their roles in the story. The most obvious difference between the show and the comic is its diversity. Most notably, Mark is biracial and his mother is Korean American. Also, Amber is black. Green Ghost and Shrinking Ray have been gender swapped, and William is a proud gay man. In the comics, William does come out, but much later in the storyline. This time around, the show acknowledges William's sexuality without including a big coming out scene. Instead, everyone already knows and is comfortable with it. In this manner, Kirkman made William's love life more normal to the viewer, since there is never any pushback or questioning when it comes to the topic. Moments like how the Guardians die, how Mark gets a superhero name, hell, Debbie is the greatest inclusion of the show. But those are all changed. Again, she, Debbie, finds Nolan's incriminating uniform, finds his actions extremely suspicious, and catches on at the right pace the show needs for suspense. Eve and Amber are also great expansions. If it isn't obvious, Amber is actually a really good character. A lot of YouTubers reacting like to say that Amber is inconsistent in the show and her standards are too high. And to those that say Amber is flawed, well, yeah, she's a teenager, and so is Eve, and so is Mark. Amber is a perfect character for holding Mark accountable and reminding Mark of his humanity, something Eve really can't do. She's vastly different from the Amber in the comics who, to be honest, is more underdeveloped. It's not a stretch at all to say that Invincible, the show, cements itself as a really good show. It's no wonder that Amazon Prime greenlit the series for season 2 and 3, practically unheard of from even other TV shows. With all that being said, though, does it stand up against its former predecessor? So, has Invincible, the IP, evolved? I'd say yes, absolutely. Indiscriminately. It's clear from the first 10 issues of the comic, Invincible was such a fresh breath of air. And the show is also just that, a breath of fresh air in a world filled with TV shows that could give less of a shit about what they're making.
Take a look! What the? Why are you covered in marinara sauce?
There's a meatball tray out there. So good.
Bro, I love fat jokes. I'll never get tired of fat jokes.
But Invincible always had a message to tell and a story to share, and never staggered away from its purpose. And it wasn't even out to make a lot of money. It was just there, a story told to freshen up the market and make readers fall in love with comics again after the fall of comics in the 1980s and the 1990s. But we gotta decide, what media tells the message the best? Well, I think it's the show. From its expert storytelling to its stunning animation, I hate to say it, but Amazon Prime made a good one this time. Invincible is a terrific instance where it took its past and made it so much better. And with a video game and a movie adaptation eventually coming out, I can say with certainty,
Invincible as an IP is well on its way to becoming a beautiful, evolving franchise.
So, from 0 to 5, 5 being the best, Amazon Prime Invincible gets a 5 out of 5. The actual comic series gets a 4.7 out of 5. And the motion comic is a